What is up, geeks and geekettes? It's another edition of the Countdown City Geekcast. My name is Ted, aka Steady. Joining me on this live stream to talk, Acolyte, and I just saw your name change. And also, House of the Dragon is David, Lord of Summerfell. What's going on, sir?
How's it going, guys? Super excited. Big announcement here. Zach is in the chat from Star Wars Stuff Podcast. Oh, Noah Richards here too. Oh my gosh.
Anyone else
Awesome.
here for David? He's a beautiful man. He's one of the best Star Wars podcast hosts, not just Star Wars, one of the best podcast hosts on the planet, on the
I don't know
face
if I
of the
agree with
earth,
that.
in the galaxy. Look at where we're at around us in the galaxy. David Lozano, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Noah says, yes, sir. Jumped over from the Star Wars Stuff podcast myself. Absolutely. Welcome,
Nice.
everybody.
Thanks, Noah.
We got a great show for you guys. We are going to be talking all about House of the Dragon, episode 7. Sorry, 4. Episode 4. Am I counting right? Episode 4, which was an absolute banger of an episode. We're going to be talking about that towards the end of the show. I also have a giveaway for select viewers in the Dallas Fort Worth area. Be dropping that towards the middle of our show. We also have a major announcement, probably the biggest thing I'm going to announce ever on this show.
I don't
Um,
think so, Ted. I think
I
you're gonna
feel
have
I feel
bigger
like
things.
if something bigger happens than what I'm about to tell, then I will be a very happy individual.
It
But
will be on your
that
tombstone.
the announcement's gonna drop after our discussion of our first topic, which of course is episode 7 of the Acolyte. What's going on? All right, there it is. Episode 7 review of the Acolyte. Again, there's the giveaway. My Spy 2 virtual giveaway is coming up very shortly for those in the Dallas Fort Worth area. But Acolyte, episode 7, we want to hear from you guys. Your thoughts on it. Drop them in the chat because this was the episode I was begging all of our viewers to wait for, and this was the episode that I was begging for Leslie Headland to give us. I said from episode 1, 2, and 3, they're setting up a lot. This is she strayed away, and this goes for like just general storytelling. They strayed away from some very obvious story components. Giving away the identity of May early on felt like an opportunity had been missed. They kind of passed over so many very basic storytelling fundamentals in exchange for this episode to build up so many mysteries, to raise so many questions and give them to us all in this episode. I was waiting for this one. I feel satisfied that so many things were addressed, so many answers were given. I know there's probably still some out there, which is totally fine, but we got one more episode, and I feel like we're at a better place now to stick the landing. That was my key turn of phrase when this season started. We need to stick the landing, folks. And I feel like we're in a better position than we were, when we were in week 1, 2, or 3. Dave, your general thoughts about the episode?
I thought we were going to get this particular episode last week because this is the whole explanation of what happened with the Jedi, the incident on Brendok where they ran into this coven of witches. We got the whole Rashomon thing where we see a different point of view from a different character. We saw Soul's point of view. We saw him hiding behind that tree in a previous episode, but we got to find out the motivations of the Jedi. They were there on that planet of Brendok because there's a vergence of the Force detected, and that's a big deal in the Jedi religion. And they were investigating, and Soul finds out it's these two little girls, and it seemed like Soul is a person that cares about children. And on top of that, there was the vergence, and on top of that, he had evidence signifying that the children were maybe like in trouble, and we get other clues that maybe they're going to be sacrificed. I mean, it was interesting the way they kind of peeled back the onion here. Like Leslie Headland said, that we're going to get more information, We just had to wait and be a little bit patient, like a Jedi, and we kind of finally got the overall scope of the actual story that was the catalyst for what we've gotten this whole season. I know a lot of people didn't like that way that the story was being told, but it is different. People have complained in the past that we need to get different stuff. Of course, we all know The Force Awakens. People are like, oh, it's just a copy of A New Hope. Well, now you don't have a copy of anything. You have something brand new, and a large part of the fandom is still complaining. So it's like Star Wars fans can't all be happy simultaneously. There's very few projects. I think maybe The Mandalorian, and maybe that's it. I don't think a lot of people liked Andor, even though Andor is like super critically acclaimed. But for tonight's episode, for the choice, I think it's gonna be one of the more liked episodes due to story and just getting the explanation because everyone was waiting for that.
Don't forget Rogue One.
I think right now, yes, Rogue One is universally accepted and loved by the entire
Widely
fandom. Yeah,
widely praised. Absolutely.
yeah, can't forget
Yeah,
about that.
no. I I'm all for just great storytelling and great writing,
Hmm.
and to raise so many questions and like put them off and like postpone resolutions is bold. It is a bold choice, and you risk alienating an audience when you have so many questions go unanswered because
Right,
listen, it's not our fault. We are programmed a certain way. When we watch a movie or a TV series, we're used to episodes having a plot at the beginning and being resolved by the end of the episode. We are programmed that way. And so to go through so many weeks, so many episodes, 6 episodes of raising question after question, mystery after mystery, it goes against our our programming as an audience. And so what you're feeling is that unsettled feeling of not getting any resolutions or being resolved in any sort of way. And I think it's bold. Dare I say, I know we're talking about Acolyte, but She-Hulk did the same thing. I actually told Tatiana Maslany, I was like, thank you, because I didn't know, and this is 100% true. I didn't know why I wasn't liking She-Hulk for the first like 3 episodes until I figured out we're watching a sitcom. We're watching a sitcom. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no point. This is Seinfeld with comic book characters, and that cleared my entire head. And that was the first time I felt my my brain, my programming had been challenged by
hmm,
a project. But going back to this one, um, yes, the Vergence was key to everything, and because I wanted to see if there had been anything sort of written or anything uh, predetermined about what a Vergence could be or how it's been described. What I found was pretty foretelling. Locations exist where the force is more sharply focused, but dangerous these places can be. Obviously, this is Yoda talking. Vergences, they are called, and should not be explored without training and permission. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant has one such. The Living Sea of Gazian, another Jedi as well. A vergence is also sometimes described as a force nexus, a nexus, or a locus. It's a naturally occurring concentration of force energy. And so I feel like maybe the witches, and this is just me theorizing here,
hmm,
um, the witches sensed the virgins. I don't think the children were actually created from the virgins, but the witches could manipulate this concentration of the force. What do they call it? They called it something different, right? What was the thread?
yes, the thread.
So I think the witches, and we might not get this answer ever. The witches manipulated this concentration of the thread, whatever mystical arts, what have you. But they found this virgins, used it, and formed these children. They are not um, naturally born by any means.
Yeah.
They are more perfect mirrors of one another than any two twins or people, is what they said in this episode. I think
Hmm.
that's very telling and very exciting that we're getting sort of these, I think, deep cuts, right? These are deep cuts in Star Wars lore.
But yeah, the Virgins was mentioned, I think, for the first time in live action in the Phantom Menace, and I believe it was on Coruscant where Qui Gon was standing behind little kid Anakin with his hands on his shoulders, I believe, and he said there, or actually it was before that, and I think it's Qui Gon talking to Yoda and Mace Windu and Ki-Adi Money, explaining that he discovered a vergence, and they didn't really go into detail explaining what that was, but yeah, it's a big deal to the Jedi, and they really kind of enforced that in this episode, and that's why they kind of went the lengths they did, and then Soul, I think him just being caring, which is kind of not a Jedi trait or something the Jedi should be practicing, a lot like Qui Gon. How Qui Gon really cared about Anakin's welfare. Saul went after the kids to try and save him because he didn't know what was going on.
I'm gonna get to that in just a second. Ivan's in the chat saying I learned nothing new from this episode. What are your thoughts? I feel like we learned a lot. We learned a lot because we kept one. The big thing is this: a lot of the Jedi either died for a past conflict or past trauma. Some were murdered. Torben committed suicide. What were the reasons for doing so?
Mm-hmm.
The event had to be so traumatic that all of these things kept building over time for over 16 years for like Torben to commit suicide. Why? For them to basically come into the situation slightly too aggressive, not finding a way to de escalate the situation. And it led to dozens of deaths of these. I don't know how big the coven was. I'm going to guess 20, 30 women in this coven led to all their deaths. That is a big answer to a question that I've had and a lot of fans have had throughout the season. What was so bad that all these other Jedi had to be murdered and Torben committed suicide? And that I think is a big answer. Dave, going back to Soul, he really wants a Padawan, like really bad.
Yeah.
And it's either because two things. Number one, he's had some sort of loss, some sort of void that we may find out about in the last episode, or he might have had a Padawan before, and he either failed, he feels like he failed that Padawan, or something happened between him and that Padawan that he's not gotten over yet. And could that be related to the stranger, aka Chimere? Does he have something to do with it? Because the question that is still yet to be answered, Soul says there is something familiar about you to the stranger. And so that will be answered in this next episode. Has to be. That way we can have some resolution there. But I think that Soul is trying to fill a void that's either been something that happened in his past or something that did happen with the Padawan. It's not been completely revealed yet why he feels so strongly about Osha, but that could be a reason. Just a theory. I'm spitballing here, but if it would make a lot of sense if the stranger has something to do with that void.
Yeah, I kind of felt like the way it came off to me was that he's a teacher, and a teacher, of course, needs a student. And when you're a Jedi teacher, you need a Padawan learner. And I think he's always been searching for that and never found a connection like he kind of is feeling with Osha. And he probably feels like this is like the right place, right time. Everything's coming together. This is a perfect storm for him, even though she is too old to be trained traditionally. I mean, this felt right to him. That's what it felt like.
We have another comment in the chat. If you guys have other questions or thoughts or theories, go ahead and throw those in the chat. Noah says the fight with Kelnaka looked very brutish. He didn't appear to have as much finesse as some of the other Jedi that we've seen. Do y'all think that's his style or how the witches use his body? I think that's his style. Jedi, and don't get me wrong, for a Wookiee, That was pretty graceful fighting, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I
He
agree
was
with that.
super
Yeah.
quick in his maneuvers, his movements, his lightsaber sort of strikes were very direct, very efficient. And I'm not a Wookiee Jedi expert by any means, so don't take it as that. But it felt like that's what a Wookiee would do. His strengths, no pun intended, are his strengths, his muscles. He is more powerful than most other Jedi or most other combatants. So I feel like his style would be a mixture of Jedi training as well as a Wookiee's power. And I thought it I thought it was actually really good. I don't know if anyone thinks it wasn't good, but look at this guy. This guy's got hops.
Yeah.
What do you think about
Yeah,
the fight, Dave?
I thought the fight was excellent. Seeing a Wookiee as a Jedi in live action is it looks fantastic. I think
So good.
maybe going into it, you maybe have questions about it, but it works. It works. I mean, and Jonas Swatamo, who played Chewbacca in the sequel trilogy, was playing Kelnaka in this. So he has a lot of Wookiee training directly from the original Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca in the original trilogy. So, yeah, he studied under him, and it looked fantastic. I'm hoping it was all him with the saber moves too. I wouldn't doubt it. But yeah, Noah's question though was the witch controlling his body. Um, I kind of go back and forth on that actually because I think you made a pretty good point, Ted, that that was maybe like almost like puppeteering the Wookiee, maybe not directly controlling him like a mech and using the force movements, but it was pointed out that he was brutish in a way and he was moving quick. So I mean, maybe we get that answer to the next episode somehow, some way. Maybe we get to see through Kalnaka's eyes. I don't see why they would go back, but I mean, we might find out in an article here coming this week. But yeah, it worked. It worked on screen. I liked it, which gives a lot of potential for Wookiees in the High Republic books, maybe brought into live action. Buryaga was one of the Wookiees that was a Jedi, and also Gunji from in the animation as well. If they bring him into live action, if they end up doing the Hayden Christensen live action thing that's rumored. Maybe we see Gunji. So
And then I think that this sort of, let's call it a hex, going to some Marvel lore, is this looks like a hex, and I think it sort of it heightens a person's aggression. So I don't think she's like literally telling him what to do by any means, but it
mhm.
just kind of brings out his animal instincts and makes him like super aggressive. And that's sort of what we're seeing is, yes, his fighting style, but also just filled with rage. And the other thing, going back to Coral, is her sending May off to prevent OSHA. Like that
Mhm.
was the thing that I never really it never sat right with me in episode 3, was why May was so aggressive to lock her sister in a room and light the walls on fire. I'm like, that's pretty extreme to take of an action, if you ask me. But
Yeah, I mean,
in this one, it's played off as more of an accident, and so I'm like, oh, okay, well, this makes more sense. And
right.
Coral getting May to also get filled with anger and rage before doing so is probably, exactly how the coven or the witches or these hexes affect other people, like Kelnaka.
Yeah, Coral does say, "Get mad, get angry." So that's
Use
a
it.
very dark side tendency there. And yeah, I mean, there was a different viewpoint how kind of May reacted to the fire, like, "Oh my gosh, what did I do?" And she didn't act as psychopathic as she did in that episode where we actually saw it for the first time.
The other question I'm still waiting for to be answered is present day May why she doesn't feel remorseful yet, because we've not seen that, right? And every time it's sort of brought up, the topic gets changed, or May just sort of changes it or does something else. But why aren't you remorseful? This entire fortress lit up in flames, everyone inside perished,
Hmm.
and she doesn't know, or maybe she finds out later that the coven had died. We need to talk about that, because I don't think you guys on the Star Wars Stuff podcast talked about the death of the coven. How strong does a Jedi have to be to mentally take out like two or three dozen witches using only the Force?
We addressed it a little bit. I came up with a speculation of maybe that so maybe Coral, when she became the smoke, maybe tied into the other witches and was drawing power from them as well to maybe control Kelnaka, and or maybe to have him hexed and to keep it going because she needed energy, and maybe she was tied to them, so she kind of became one with them possibly. And maybe like the Federation ship where you destroy the ship, you destroy all the droids. Maybe it was that type of relationship. That's why it happened the way it did. But that was just something I kind of came up with on the spot, and I don't think we're really gonna maybe even find out at all from this season. Maybe they explain it, but I mean, it's just kind of one of those things. It's just a story element that kind of needed, and I don't think they need a whole lot of explanation per se. But all we know that they got taken out. We were wondering what happened to them in that one episode where they showed them all on the ground. I was trying to figure out if that mining colony, that big dam they're in on Brendock, did that go completely in flames? Because theoretically, I mean, if the witches are just laying there and the thing didn't go entirely up in flames, they could still technically be alive, and they were just knocked out from whatever witch magic was thrust upon them. Because I didn't see the whole thing go down technically.
Yeah, we don't see that. I would hesitate to think or say that they're going to come back. We've seen them in multiple scenes now,
Hmm.
either being incapacitated or being lifeless. I do, however, and I think you guys talked about this before. I've talked about this before. Coral's body doesn't seem to be anywhere in that pile.
Right, and we pointed that out too. And some of the hosts, I think, said they thought they saw Coral, but I think Coral's like the wild card. She could be possessing Chimere. She could be controlling some random guy. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, it's I think it's going to be, it must be like a final twist, and I'm all here for it. If we find out Chimere has some sort of connection to Coral,
Hmm.
he's either a Padawan. There's always two. Um, he's either a Padawan or he's
Apprentice.
an apprentice. My bad,
Yeah.
an apprentice, and that's where he learned all this stuff from. I actually was kind of wondering if Coral was some sort of a shapeshifter, because that would tie all of this stuff together. But we'll find out next episode if that's what's going to happen. I feel like we're going to get a big twist next week, and
Yep.
Coral will show her face once again.
Yep. And there are shapeshifters in Star Wars.
That would make perfect sense, and
Yeah.
I've always had it in my head since early on when the show started, this season
Yeah.
started. Like, if there's a shapeshifter, that would solve a lot of these questions. Shapeshifter who's kind of manipulating people. She's been around doing things, moving pieces, controlling folks. It's almost too easy of an answer.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's kind of
It's
like
almost
lazy
too easy,
writing.
and I totally get it. But at least if we get Coral is still alive, and for whatever reason it took her this long to exact her revenge. I don't know why it took this long. There's got to be a meaning or reason behind why it took 16 years. It seems like a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting like Harry Potter vibes for a second there because of people dying and people like splitting into two, that whole thing. And if Coral, I mean, it could essentially be like the shape shifting type of like plot device, but she's just the smoke that can inhabit people, which could be kind of a form of shape shifting, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to get those answers in the last episode of the season.
Do you think that there's been, because it would be wild if we do get this twist and then we can go back and actually get references or examples to coral being around, like you mentioned, and sort of this vaporous or smoke apparition. Not that she's in that state all the time, but that she's inhabiting people, moving chess pieces, manipulating folks. It would be wild if we start seeing like the breadcrumbs of her actually being throughout this entire season. That would be wild, and I would really applaud everybody involved for being, again, I said at the beginning of this stream, being bold in the way they decided to tell this story in the format that they did, in the manner that they did, and have all of us guessing like throughout the entire season. Wild, very
Yeah,
bold.
yeah, they did something different in Star Wars, and a lot of people were asking for that. So we got it, and I'm liking it.
I really, if I don't even know what else to say. I am excited for this final episode, and I'll be very honest, haven't always been excited about like next week's episode. Happy to
Well,
say that now. Happy to say that.
yeah, I mean, I've been excited. I mean, it's Star Wars. I love Star Wars. I have a Star Wars podcast, and I mean, I've after the Last Jedi for me, I'm resigned to the fact that I have no control over any of these stories, and whatever they give us, I think it's always going to be quality to a certain extent, and they're not dealing with characters that I hold near and dear to me, like Luke Skywalker. So, anything they do with these characters, I mean, I'm not going to have that attachment like I did before, and Jedi should have not have attachments. So I'm not a Jedi, but they can do anything, and I go in with an open mind, and I just want to see like the certain things like the Jedi interacting with each other. I've always wanted to see that on screen. So I'm super happy to see that. The interaction we got tonight between Indara, Carrie Ann Moss, and Lee Jung Jae, who plays Soul, was awesome. I love to see that type of interaction because I've been dreaming about it since I was a little kid. I was born in 1981, so I was right at the tail end of the VHS era of the original trilogy that I would watch all the time. And to see Jedi on screen together, that's like the stuff of my dreams. So I'm happy about that. And then the lightsaber action too. The very little bit that we've gotten of it, Chimera stuff was
Stellar.
fantastic. Yeah, and then tonight, yeah, to see a Wookiee with a lightsaber in live action, oh my gosh, it's
S- Saul's aerial jump over Kalnaka's, lightsaber attack was like
yeah,
perfect.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden
Poetry,
Dragon.
poetry in motion. And I'm just like, wow, it's you we want those things all the time, but I guess if we did get it all the time, it wouldn't be as special. So
Yeah, Crouching
Lee
Jedi, Hidden Wookiee. I don't know.
Lee Jung Jae, I'll get a little bit reminiscent now that we're towards the end of the season. Lee
Yeah,
Jung Jae, I've been a fan of ever since Squid Game, and then I became a massive fan once I saw a Korean film that he directed. He also starred in. It was a spy
wow.
thriller. It was a spy thriller called The Hunt, and his character in Squid Game and his character in The Hunt are on two very different ends of the spectrum. And I'm just like, this guy has incredible range as an actor. And I became a massive fan after witnessing both of those projects. So when he got announced for Star Wars, I was all in. I was like, perfect, absolute perfect casting choice. I think he could pull anything off. So yeah, really excited about that. Carrie Ann Moss, I'm glad we finally got to see more of her. It was
Mhm.
odd seeing her killed off in the first few minutes of the first episode. I was getting Mortal Kombat 2 vibes. I was like, oh no, they they what's it called? They caged her.
Johnny Cage.
Johnny caged her. Yeah,
You almost said
just
Luke Cage.
I almost said Luke. That's what old age does to you, folks. Yeah, I was like, "Oh no, they Johnny Caged her," and I was like, "Please let us see more of her. Let her come back in a twist or something." But
Yeah.
this was good seeing Carrie Ann in this role. So I'm glad we got to see her shine a little bit more. Cool. Can't believe we made it this far. I barely made it through seasons of like Halo, the first season of Halo. Barely made it through that.
I didn't make it through
Um,
that.
yeah, everybody else bailed on me. I was like, "Look, I'm gonna stick it out."
Well, I didn't
But
bail on you, but if you would have told me, "Hey, you need to watch Halo so we can talk about this on I would have done it. I mean, I'm a big Halo fan, so
everybody left me hanging. It's all good. It's all good. But this season has gotten more and more interesting as the
yeah,
episodes have gone on. So, yeah, it's been pretty fascinating. I've enjoyed it. It's wild that we're getting this far back. You know, the High Republic stuff now. Give
yeah,
me my Knights of the Old Republic project. I want a series. If it's a movie, I'll take it. But I've been begging for that since I played the first KOTOR, and KOTOR 2 is
yeah,
my favorite.
yeah. That cutscene animation, man. If they could give us that in live action, good God, they're gonna make all the money.
It
Put it in
doesn't
the
even,
theater.
yeah, and just do a one for one adaptation. It doesn't matter that we know what's gonna happen. Like,
Uh,
do it, absolutely do it. Rev it on
yeah,
the
can you
big
imagine
screen
that?
would
A
be.
Jedi versus Sith war. All of them have lightsabers. The red versus the green, blues. Man,
I don't know what we're waiting for. That it's been there for forever, and it
do
feels
the
like,
Jennifer Love Hewitt. What are you waiting for?
yeah, absolutely do it. Okay, that was our thoughts on the Acolyte, episode 7. We got some business to take care of. First of which is actually going to be a giveaway. If you don't know us, if this is the first time some of you guys are watching us, the Countdown City Geeks, we actually partner with every major studio to give early advanced screenings to folks in our neck of the woods. Usually San Antonio, all surrounding major cities, Dallas, Houston. And then every once in a while, we actually go nationwide and we give out advanced tickets to major blockbuster movies early, not like day that it comes out, like a week, a few days early. That way, you guys get a chance to see it on us. It's absolutely free, and this is a very special one. My Spy, The Eternal City. This is a virtual screening giveaway. This is actually going to be for a very select few folks. So I do apologize if you're watching this right now and you're like, "Oh my God, I would love to watch that." This is going to be for folks in the Dallas Fort Worth area. Um, before you say something like, "Why is it only them?" It's actually because the studio is looking to kind of get certain segments of the country, and so they're actually targeting this area. Now, if you ask me, how do they know for sure that they're in that area? I can't tell you, but if you're in the Dallas Fort Worth area, or if you think you're close enough, there's a link in the chat right now. Head on over to our website at countdowncitygeeks.com. Register with the studio website, and you may have a chance to watch My Spy, The Eternal City early in your house. And for anyone who's like groaning or like, that's not a big deal, I actually really enjoyed the first My Spy. It was probably the first role that I saw of Dave Batista where I'm like, "Oh, this guy can really act. He's not just like an action star like these other wrestlers. Like he's actually really funny. He's got great comedic timing. He's got like an emotional range about him,
Hmm.
and I was really impressed with the first My Spy. It's like 10 years old now, but yeah, I'm actually curious to see what the second one's about. It's a straight to Amazon Prime movie, but if you do get offered the virtual screening in your city, congrats, and I hope you enjoy it. Let us know what you thought. Noah's got one more thought on the Acolyte. Tonight's episode left me questioning why Tori killed himself back in episode 2. He really didn't do anything all that terrible. Soul actions led to potentially death of the entire coven. You're right in that it wasn't completely on his shoulders. Perhaps the thing that really made him feel guilty was that he was sort of too anxious to race back to the temple, and didn't rely on his training, or didn't rely on his patience, or the teaching of his master, and sort of find a way to de-escalate. No matter what, he didn't want it to go down the way he did. And even if he wasn't directly responsible, that's a lot to put on a young person. A young person who's trying to be a Jedi, which is this like light, this goodness in the universe. And also, we found out like his longing for Coruscant was really strong. I mean, his master, Carrie Moss, was telling him like, "Do not give in to your anxieties," or something like that. Do not think about your anxieties. So it's probably not. He doesn't feel completely 100% at fault, but just that feeling, and then going into this. What am I thinking of? I don't want to say coma, but his
The bearish vow, the
yeah,
self exile. Yeah.
going into that for this long of time, it just puts a lot of weight on a person. So those are my thoughts. Do you have any thoughts about Torben?
Um, he had a lot of time to reflect on it, and it was a very selfish thing that he did. They got the order to come back home to Coruscant, and I think once he found that out after everything happened, that they were indeed going to go home without the children, and maybe he did, but maybe he was aware of that. But anyways, it was selfish of him to take the speeder bike and to draw on the rest of the team, and just he was scared. He was frightened. Mother Anastasia had already broken into his mind, and he was just trying to get home essentially via get rescuing these girls. And I think after reflecting on it, he just couldn't handle it. Some people have higher thresholds of handling trauma than others, and I mean it could be as simple an explanation as that. His PTSD from the whole thing was just maybe the most traumatic thing he had experienced, and he kind of held it on himself and took the responsibility and thought it was if he wasn't there, if he didn't make the choices, uh, which is the title of the episode that he did, maybe all this stuff wouldn't have happened.
I love it. Thank you guys for all your comments and all your participation in that topic. And that was our discussion on the Acolyte. We will finish the season next week. Do join us again for the finale. It will be exciting, or it could be the opposite. Maybe they stumble on the landing, but we will find out next week to see what it's really all about. So here we go. I know that if you were on our stream last week, I teased a major announcement that we were going to make. And I'm glad that Dave is here with us because he is directly involved in this announcement. And it is this: I've been sort of this super geek and super fan, super passionate about like movies and TV shows ever since I was a teenager. I worked at the movies. Um, I remember the very, very first time a comic convention ever came into our town. I had to get involved, and I volunteered when I was 17 or 18, and I helped build the booths overnight. I was an overnight volunteer. I was putting stuff together, assembling these heavy posts and putting up these tables, moving stuff in and out. And I wanted to get closer to the excitement, and I wanted to be around people who thought like me and who were passionate about things like this, and about movies like me. So that was the first time I gotten that close to something like that. And so I sort of made a not a promise or a vow, but I set a goal and a quest to kind of do more things like that and get closer to the people and get closer to just this other world of entertainment. And I don't want to be in entertainment, but I want to be close enough to it where I can enjoy it with other folks. And so it is my great honor and pleasure to announce that for the first time ever, the Countdown City Geeks are going to the biggest event in the world where you can join fans and others who are just as passionate like you. And it is the center of the universe. It's not in a galaxy far, far away. It's right here in ours. We are going to San Diego Comic Con 2024.
Do you have the applause
Countdown.
button?
Woo! I do not, so we'll just clap like that.
We'll do the Ric Flair button instead. Woo!
Yeah. For anybody who is not familiar with us, I attended my first San Diego Comic Con back in 2015, and it was a dream come true. I mean, I was a part of Hall H. I met you. I met I know, I see them all. I met so many great individuals, met so many lifelong friends, ran into so many celebrities just walking around. And seriously, it's like it Disneyland, Disney World is not the happiest place on earth. It is absolutely San Diego Comic Con. So I actually went for multiple years between the years of 2015 and 2018, but I always went as an attendee and I always went as a volunteer. And there's nothing wrong with that. That was just the way and the manner that I had to get in. But now, our network, our media team, we've actually been invited as press to the event. We've been welcomed as press to the event. And so this is a different quest now. I am absolutely looking to bring you guys closer to San Diego than maybe you've ever been before. If you haven't been before, we're going to try to get you as close as you can as possible. We will be bringing you updates. We will be bringing you breaking news. We will be bringing you clips from Hall H and other panels, collectibles. We will be interviewing the stars and the creators from your favorite shows as absolutely as much as humanly possible. We are not going to sleep. We are on a mission. And Dave, this is going to be your first trip to San Diego. What are your thoughts right now? What are your feelings about finally getting to the center of the universe?
So many thoughts, so many feelings, so many words. I mean, it's an incredible thing, man. I've told you that I've been watching footage from every San Diego Comic Con for years and years and years on YouTube since YouTube has existed, since they've been doing live streams for panels. I still watch those old panels and look at them as like fond memories. Like I was there, but of course I wasn't there. This will be my first time actually going, and this is the granddaddy of them all. This is kind of where the big like celebration hoopla started, was in San Diego, and that's where everyone, all the studios we work with, will be there. They'll have panels, they'll have booths, they'll have exclusives, celebrities just walking around everywhere, some in masks. If we can figure out who is who, um, I mean, Marvel is gonna be there. They're gonna have a presence. My ultimate goal is to see Kevin Feige with my own eyes walking across that stage. And this might be the perfect year for me because I'm a huge X-Men fan. And now we all know that 20th Century Fox has been purchased by Disney, and now they can wrap it all into the MCU, connect it all, and maybe cast new people. And we get the new cast delivered in front of us, announced in front of our faces. I mean, that's like one of my dreams, man. And to be there in San Diego, I mean, that's just, oh my God. That, I mean, this is like I told you earlier, this is like the Super Bowl. This is like the World Series. This is all of that stuff wrapped up into one for like fandom. and all the stuff that we love and care about and talk about and podcast about and write stories about, and I mean we love it. This is the place to be.
I always, I mean, I've told a lot of stories about San Diego before. It's just like the most magical place. Things will happen that you do not expect to happen. You will see people, and you will go through experiences you did not anticipate. Some of it is just by chance and by luck. I will tell you guys one story real quick, and then we got to get on to House of the Dragon. We went one year, and it was day one of San Diego. We go into the expo floor. I have my son with me. My son's about 9 at this time, 9 or 10, I believe. We go into the expo floor, and I told my son as soon as we were walking through the doors, I was like, "Hey, you stay with me, all right? There's a lot of people here. I mean, I don't know how many people. There's a lot of folks here, so you stay with me." As soon as I stepped onto the expo floor, I lost him. He's gone, like nowhere in 30 feet of me, and I'm like, this is the worst because there's stuff you have to do. The the collectibles, the exclusives, they go in the first 5 minutes for some booths, so you have to bolt to like the people you want to go to. You have to get tickets for the events later on. Like there's just a lot that is involved. So I'm freaking out because I lost my son, and now we can't, get it, whatever. I think about where would he go, and I'm looking around. I'm like, oh, Hasbro. There's a Transformers booth. I'm gonna head over there. So I walk to the Hasbro booth, and sure enough, who's sitting there looking at all the Transformers toys that are about to come out in the next year? It's my 10-year-old son. And he's like, Dad, look, Transformers. I'm like, yeah, well, you walked off. We just talked about, what did we talk about? Either way,
Gosh.
the Hasbro attendee is like right next to us, and she's handing out these tickets, and she says, "Here you go. Would you like a ticket?" And I'm like, "Sure." Rule number one of San Diego: anything you get offered, you take. I'll explain later. I said, "Sure." So I took it, and I said, "What is it for?" She says, "Oh, we're having a signing in a few hours, and it's with Jason David Frank." And I turned white. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I grew up watching the Rangers. JDF was my hero. I aspired to be like him. I I I pulled some of my morals from him. He was just like the figure. The gold standard was JDF. Was Tommy from the Power Rangers. So I said, "Are you kidding?" And sure enough, she wasn't. So we took our tickets, and a few hours later, I'm in line meeting one of my heroes, and we are getting a selfie with the man. We are getting autographs from him, and he was one of the best. Still to this day, there's arguably nobody who is as good with the fans as Jason David Frank is at conventions. May he absolutely rests in peace, just because I still miss him to this day. And I've met him a few more times over the years, and I've had a chance to interview him myself. And he's always just been like just the greatest person on the planet, and he's always thinking about others before him, and he always thought about his fans. Always thought about his fans. Anyway, that's my example of just how magical San Diego can be at certain times. Getting to meet one of my heroes, and had no intentions of it. I had no idea the man was there. Um, yeah, so that kind of thing just sort of happens. So yeah, really excited. um really cannot wait for us to kind of get there. And there's a lot of pre-planning involved. We'll probably let you guys know about some of it, but there's a lot of knowns, and then there's a lot of unknowns. And the thing that is really kind of hovering over this entire event is that San Diego Comic-Con just so happens to fall in the same week that Deadpool and Wolverine drops. Like we will be in San Diego when the movie gets released. So as of today, I don't know when we're going to get a chance to see it.
Mm.
I hope there's a possibility, but there's going to be few 100,000 people in San Diego all trying to do the same thing. And I promise you, there's not enough movie theaters in the San Diego area for us to kind of go watch it. So that is really up in the air. I'm really hoping for a miracle to happen, and we get a chance to see it before we head out to California. But other than
Mm.
that, we're gonna have a ton of stuff to do. We're gonna have a ton of content. We're gonna be doing a lot of interviews with creators, with actors, writers. I even saw some composers on the list, and I love to talk to composers about their process, about writing and scores and soundtracks and stuff. So I'm stoked, and I'm really stoked for you, man. I told Dave, I said I'm gonna put you under my wing. I promise I'm gonna make this as great of an experience for you as possible, and I really meant that. So I'm glad I'm getting to take somebody from the team along for the ride.
Yeah, sounds awesome, man. Yeah, thanks, Ted, for the opportunity here to go, and especially as press. I mean, we might have some pretty decent access. I've been to several Star Wars celebrations, and that's like Christmas morning for 3, 4, 5 days, however long they have it. So I'm hoping Comic Con has the same type of feel for me, because I mean it's the mecca, man. Everyone's gonna migrate there and show up there. The cosplay is gonna be insane. That's the place to do it. I mean, no one's gonna hold back, and I mean the lines, Hall H, all the different announcements, all the secrets, all the viral marketing stuff that's probably gonna happen. So yeah, and the Deadpool thing, I mean, that's such a wild card. It's like hopefully we do see it in Texas before we go over there. But I mean, what if they're like, we love you guys so much in this Marvel panel. If we're gonna pass out tickets, and if you come back tonight, we'll show you the movie because everyone's gonna see it here anyways. Everyone's gonna spend the money. So because I think all
I've
theaters are sold out for screenings for that movie anyway. So it's like, I mean, they already got your money.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I can't wait. It's going to be it'll be the first time San Diego is getting back to some sort of normalcy. It did return last year,
Right.
but it was sort of slim pickings
Yeah.
on the presentations. A lot of the studios didn't bother because they didn't have a lot of projects coming out.
Yeah. Writer
So
strike, actor strike,
writer
director
strike, actor
strike. Yeah.
strike, COVID delayed a lot of stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, this is going to be the first time in many years that San Diego is going to be at full strength again, and
With
we know
Marvel
Marvel's
and
going to be there. Yep,
yeah.
and I really would love to see James Gunn there with
God, that'd be
something.
wild.
I
I mean,
he needs to.
you would think, even if he shows up for like 2 hours or something and then flies back to England or whatever. I mean, he's done that. He did that with Guardians of the Galaxy way back when. For the first movie, they flew from London here, San Diego, and then flew right back. It sounds insane, but I mean, this is the place to be, and we're gonna be there. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't get bigger than this. This is the big one.
James understands the true meaning and
The spirit. Yeah.
the spirit and just like what it means to the fans to be at San Diego. He understands the gravity of being at San Diego. So
Right.
I fully think that he will make an attempt to be there. Probably won't get a whole lot of Superman stuff. It's probably too soon for that because they've only started shooting a few
I
weeks
don't know,
ago.
man. I wouldn't be surprised if David Corn Sweat walks across that stage, man,
Sure.
and in the suit, addresses the crowd, kind of like how Tom Hiddleston did with Loki, and we're just gonna go insane. I mean, I told Ted, I mean, you might see a grown man cry in Hall H and when he turns and looks at me, because I mean, if I see the cast of X-Men in front of my eyeballs, the newly announced cast with Kevin Feige standing there, it's gonna be everything that I've hoped for, everything that I dreamed about. I never thought I'd be in the situation. Just seeing that in front of me would be one of the greatest moments, I think, of my fandom. So yeah, man, it's almost too overwhelming to think about. So I gotta make sure my body's right.
And we have a lot of work to do ahead
I
of
gotta
us.
calm
But
down.
and we have a lot of work to do ahead of us. So yeah,
Yeah,
more to come from San Diego 2024 and the
yeah.
Countdown City Geeks. Stay tuned for the ride. It sounds like we're signing off, but we still got to talk about House of the Dragon. Um,
You're
but
not
bef-
done yet.
but before we do, something that I got reminded of earlier is we are celebrating an anniversary of a
Oh,
very
no.
special
Yeah.
occasion. So if you guys would please turn your attention to the video I'm about to play.
That we shot at the end with Bryce, where Bo has it here because she's timid about the exception of the dark saber. She took it once before and it went terribly wrong. So after explaining to Din why she can't take it, she's apprehensive, which we thought was a much better sort of like position for her. But there was one scene or one take where I went like this.
Yeah,
Awesome. That's ridiculous, man. That was a great moment.
fantastic moment, and
And I think when the camera pans a little bit, you can see me sitting down at the very end there, taking it all in. But yeah,
it's
Katie was so awesome, man. I told her, I said, come back to San Antonio, and she's coming back for SpaceCon in October. So she's keeping her promise.
absolutely
Yeah.
that moment was a magical one. It doesn't always happen when we go to these things, but I really want, and this is something that I've picked up from San Diego. It really does influence you with kind of everything else you go through. I want San Diego Comic Con Hall H moments to happen in in our conventions, in our home city, in our events that we attend.
And
If
I
if
think they
we
do.
if we have control, if we have any sort of control about what happens at these events, I want to influence and I want to bring Hall H that atmosphere and that energy to these panels and to these stages. So this was one of those moments. I was sitting there talking to Katie during our panel, and the entire time I'm eyeballing the room. I'm scanning. I'm looking for somebody that has a dark saber in their hands, and sure enough, I spotted a fellow. So at the end of our panel, I don't even remember what I said. I think I said, "Okay, hold on, I have an idea," or whatever. I stood up and I said, "You, sir, with the dark saber, come on over here." And he did. Luckily, he didn't say like, "No, I'm not going to do it," and he runs off. But he brought it up, and I gave it to Katie. And in my head, I think I wanted to tell her like, "Hey, could you give us a story?" And I don't even remember if I had a chance to say it. As soon as I think I handed it to her, she just went off and started telling
Mm,
us the story about what happened on set while they
yeah.
filmed this unused version. And I was like, "Ooh, it's already it's already happening," before I got a chance to kind of mention anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she knew what to do. I mean, she's a pro. She's done lots of panels. And you're a pro too, Ted. I mean, you came off as veteran panel host as I've always seen. I've always seen Ted do terrific panels. So yeah, and I'm kind of hesitant to do panels because I don't think it can be as good as Ted. That's my thing. I'm like, man, Ted does it like it's like a duck swimming in water or a fish in water. I'm trying to find the right analogy here. And to me, I'd be just like, I don't know, like a bird trying to swim in water. I don't know, but I mean, Ted has set like a huge precedent for Countdown City Geeks because he's one of the better hosts out there. And I totally think, I mean, you never know. We could find you up at one of the panels in 2 weeks at San Diego Comic Con.
That would be, again, that would be a dream come true. And I know what I'm going to say if I ever get on a stage at Hall H. I'm going to say, "You, sir." I'm going to point to the guy in the third row, and I'm going to tell him to stand up. I'm going to say, "I just want you to know I sat in that chair like 8 years ago, 9 years ago." And that's going to be the first thing I say. And I'm going to just do that to kind of mention like, I had aspirations of being on the stage one day, and if you do as well, or if anybody else does in this room, just know that it could be achieved.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think there's a plan on how to do it. I just think if you want it bad enough, the force will guide you.
Yeah. And I think the universe will get out of your way too, and will enable certain things to happen.
100%.
Yeah.
Alrighty, House of the Dragon, episode 4. There's probably a lot to mention in this that happened in this episode, but really we're just gonna get down to it. This was all about the beginning of the Dance of the Dragons, and it was a glorious fight between um, Nereus and Aemond, uh, and then you have King Aegon the Second drunkenly putting himself in harm's way. You know,
Who you
even
just did a
though
panel with at Superhero Comic Con.
who I just did a panel with, and
Yeah.
I'm actually I'm indifferent on like what happens next. I need to make sure he's still like on the show first before I say anything. But yeah, so just this whole moment is what we've really been waiting for, is for this war to break out and for these dragons to be incorporated. The nuclear option is what this is. It is factions using their
Uh,
nuclear missiles against one another, and it is devastating for many reasons. There's so much collateral damage once you put dragons head to head. I
mm,
mean, they're just murdering their own sides at this point. Aemon's dragon is like stomping on the soldiers that
yeah.
are trying to be fighting alongside him. It is
Vagar is massive,
wild.
man.
Yeah, it is absolutely wild. Dave, your thoughts on witnessing the beginning of the Dance of the Dragons?
So I love House of the Dragon. I love Game of Thrones. I came into it late with the whole Game of Thrones phenomenon. I saw a lot of people love it. And I'm actually one of the few people out there that actually love the ending of the Game of Thrones. And that's a whole nother discussion. But I do really love House of the Dragon. I thought it wasn't going to be good. There was the whole thing with the Blood Moon thing being canceled, the other spinoff with Naomi Watts. But I was like, okay, so is this going to be like Game of Thrones? It is totally like Game of Thrones. That first season was terrific. We talked about it. We called it Hot D. We talked about feet. It was a lot of fun. It was appointment television. Every Sunday night, got to watch that, and that time period was awesome too. Because I mean, you had Hot D, She Hulk, Andor, and The Rings of Power all happening, all new episode. That was a wonderful time. But anyways, so this episode, I've been loving this season so far. Season two. It was 2 years until we got the second season, which it doesn't feel that long, but we waited a while. But I mean, just great television, great writing, great characters, and I mean, the dragons are fantastic, but the small moments, the conversations between characters, the character development, the character building, the world building, the inside baseballness of it all, because the books have been around for decades. Um, References to future battles for this show, but yeah, I'm getting on a tangent here because I'm just kind of gushing about this show. But
You're good.
we always talk about on the Star Stuff podcast, like, why can't Lucasfilm make a Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon type show where it's this good? This show is so good. It is so good. And yeah, the start of the Dance of the Dragons, man. I mean, it's on, and in a serious way. And I think it's, for me, it's the best show that's out there in the fandom. Um, Rainey's, we're talking spoilers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So yeah, Rainey's has been a solid character throughout. Um, Her addressing Corliss's bastard who saved his life, man, was such with such grace and eloquence when she told Corliss that he should be revered and held up and not hidden. It was like, wow, that that was just a beautiful piece of writing right there, and says a lot about the character. And of course, Rhaenys, I think, in some way, shape, or form, thought she was riding to battle to her death. And the fact that she did not retreat, she did not flee home. She faced she faced Vagar head on and faced the situation. And she was supposed to be the queen. She was supposed to rule on the Iron Throne, the Seven Kingdoms, and that through line of her story. I mean, you can see the pain and feel the pain. She would have made an awesome queen. She maybe would have kept the peace too. All those years of peace leading up to Aegon the Second being the ruler. I mean, just her character alone, man, was just terrific. That actress freaking nailed it. I'm not sure. Would you know the actress's name?
Not off the top of my head, no.
She did an interview a while back where I think it was Perry Nemiroff actually. She asked her, "What are you the most proud of in season 2?" And of course, she couldn't give away spoilers, but she talked about the moment from last night or from Sunday night where she said there was a piece of acting that I did that was was some of the best and most creative parts of the character that I had to portray, and I really had to dig deep. I'm paraphrasing here. She didn't exactly use these words, but I mean, she talked about this particular scene that we saw last night that really cemented and defined Rhaenys and what she did in the face of the whole wasn't named properly by Viserys as the successor, and which was given to Rhaenyra, and now we have this whole conflict. But I mean, that's just one character. The whole Aegon saga as well. I mean, he's basically a petulant child that doesn't understand his duty, and he's just the opposite of being a pragmatist that he needs to be. That Aemon totally is. I mean, Aemon is, of course, I mean, he's a big time opportunist and a capitalist. You can see him
Yeah.
as evil, but I mean, even in last season and the finale when Vagar chomped down on Jaehaerys, that's the kid's name, right?
Yep.
He displayed remorse in the whole thing in his acting, and he regrets it, of course, and that started the whole thing. That guy's acting is terrific. I'm not quite sure what his actual name is, but yeah,
So
it's
Eve Best was Rhaenys.
okay. Eve Best.
Yeah,
So yeah, I
and
mean, oh man, these characters are just. I mean, the writing is just awesome. The story is awesome, and they did deviate from the books a little bit. Um, Aegon riding into battle with Aegon the Conqueror's armor on, with his crown on Sunfire, and just not knowing what to do and just being very ham-fisted with this whole rule, and Aemon coming in and just basically torching and not caring about the collateral damage. I don't know. What's your opinion? Do you think he was like, I don't care what happens, or I really want to fry Aegon here?
yeah, no. So if we remember the previous episode, Aemon was caught in the brothel,
Right, right.
and
Oh yes, he was embarrassed. Yes.
he was embarrassed. He
So
was
you're taking that into account with his decision, like I got to get rid of this dude.
100%.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, he's not letting that go like ever. And he's always been teased throughout his life. Like the way he is now is, I think, a direct reflection on the experiences he had growing up. I mean, he
Mm,
was pretty much teased and either beaten or whatever by all of his siblings and younger relatives. I mean, even Rhaenyra's kids, right, also picked on him. Even though some were younger than him, they would still pick on him. And so, like, yeah, he kind of had a tough upbringing, and now you see this hard exterior, and he 1000%, called for Jacaris on was willing to kill his own brother in
right.
that moment, and he probably is not thinking about trying to be king at that moment. He's just knowing like this is for everything. Payback's bitch. Yeah.
Yeah. Even in that scene where he speaks High Valyrian to his brother Aegon at the table and no one else understands, he basically says the right things, not to get a rise out of Aegon, but he does confirm that him and Sir Kristen have been strategizing and working together behind the scenes to do certain things. And then, of course, Aegon's like, I'm the king. They need to talk to me. And he seeks counsel with his mother, Alicent, and Alicent basically lays it down for him that all he has to do is shut up
That's
because
it.
he has veterans in his corner, specialists, if you will, in their fields, and he could have an easy rule if he just lets people do their jobs. And of course, he does the ridiculous thing of riding into battle and kind of almost ruining Kristen's and Aemon's plan with Vagar to uh, to just kind of take over the battle. I'm not sure if they knew that they had no idea that Rhaenys was going to show up with Melee's, right?
No,
Obviously,
I mean, they were definitely trying to get some sort of response, and probably
right?
from the queen. Um, I think that was their primary target, was the queen's going to come out here since we're so close. They were literally like right next to the castle. They said, it's across the bay. Um,
Yeah, yeah. The dragon combat was awesome too. They use their talons and they scratch at each other as well as blowing fire and they bite. And Vagar, of course, got that huge bite on the neck of Melee's, and it was sad, man, to see Melee's turn around, look at Rhaenys, and you could tell it's like, yep, this is it. It's over. And
yeah,
then the fall, the camera shot of the fall, she just lets go of the reins and she knows it's over. And then they crash. Did you notice that when each dragon crashed, there's just like a ball of fire? I mean, does that expel from their mouth or their gut, or how does that? Or was it already like just fire on the
I think
ground or
it's
whatever?
yeah, I think it's just whatever their biological makeup is.
Okay,
A lot of it is flammable, so it's like
okay,
dropping an oil tanker or like a
right,
18-wheeler filled with gasoline, dropping it down from a high point and just watching it,
yeah,
go up into a ball of flames. That's what I kind of took it as,
yeah. Man, the mind of George R. R. Martin, man.
right?
And then Ryan Condal that's adapting this for TV. Incredible, man. Incredible. You went from Benioff and Weiss to Ryan Condal. I'm like, man, I mean, he's knocking it out of the park here, man. It's so great. I mean,
These are
it's
these are great showrunners.
yeah.
They're so good at their craft, and I am enjoying it more, I think, than I was with Game of Thrones. Not to say that it's better overall. It's just that it kind of took me longer to get hooked on Game of
Yeah, Game of
Thrones.
Thrones I think can be more like plotting and you gotta have a little bit of patience more so.
Yes, 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 absolutely. And I think like the finale of season 1 of Game of Thrones, I think is the thing that really hooked me. And I was hooked from that point forward. But like House of the Dragon, I was hooked after like, first episode. The first episode was just like of this season. I was like, oh my god, it's fantastic. And even last season, a lot of storytelling, a lot of kind of building the foundation for the rest of the series. But they're just they're just bragging. Now they're just showing off like how good this show has the potential to be. And that's what I really love about it. Is now we're like, yeah, now they can go about doing whatever they want. It's no more flashbacks, no more cutting to and fro from present to past. And it's so exciting and it's really good. This was a gut wrenching episode for a number of reasons. And I think next week is now the most highly anticipated episode so far, just because we want to know what state the king is in right now, or if that crown should go on the head of someone else, and we will find out next week.
So who is the heir apparent?
I mean, if you're asking me, it's the brother. I think it goes to Aemond. next, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it might be one of his kids actually, but
Well,
I guess
only has a daughter now,
okay. Yeah,
and she's
there's
too
so many
young.
different kids and parents, and it's hard to keep track. But yeah, if they do it like the English rule, it wouldn't technically go to his brother; it would go to his kids. But he doesn't have a kid, so yeah. What's the ruling on who gets the crown next? Um, I don't know. I don't know that part of the books. I know a few parts from the books, and I think there's a part in the book about the fate of Aegon there when he gets charred. And I'm not so sure that I know exactly what happens, but I know there's a description in there that his armor gets essentially grafted onto his skin in some parts. So it's like you cannot take off his armor without removing his skin, essentially. And I don't know what the Game of Thrones science biology is behind all that, if he's going to stay alive or what. But yeah, they didn't show us a definitive, like, he's dead. It feels like next episode, next Sunday, they're going to pick up with that scene, and Kristen is going to be bending the knee and trying to communicate with Aegon. And uh, it's going to be, it's going to probably be gruesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can't wait. And we want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on episode 4 of House of the Dragon? What do you think is going to happen to the crown? Who does it go to next? Will Aemon take the crown? Will it go to someone else? Does the queen just sort of take over from here on out? That remains to be seen. Let us know your thoughts in the chat. And also be sure to join us next week as we finish our discussion on the Acolyte, and we will also continue our discussion on House of the Dragon. If you guys haven't already seen it on our YouTube channel, I was lucky enough to watch for the first time. Well, not the first time, but lucky enough to be a part of an early screening of Long Legs featuring Nicolas Cage. Thanks for all the views. Whoever's watched it so far. I believe it's already passed 500 views today. And so, if you want to check out my non-spoiler thoughts on Long Legs that features Nicolas Cage as you've never seen him before, I promise. Go check out that video on our YouTube channel. If you don't know what Long Legs is, I highly recommend you go to our website at countdowncitygeeks.com, where you can not only see an article for my review, but I also put the trailer for the movie below that. It is a horror movie, and I that's all I want to say about that. I don't want to give any details away because I promise you it'll be a much better experience if you do not have any preconceived notions about what you're going to go watch. But I absolutely loved what they did with it. It is a beautifully crafted movie. It is unsettling for most of it, which I applaud films that do that. It's not an easy thing to do, but the ones that can achieve that, it is an achievement worth applauding and celebrating. So, congrats to all those involved. And before we go, if you haven't already heard, we are also promoting SpaceCon San Antonio 2024, where we will be joined by several members of the Star Wars universe: Rosario Dawson, Ewan McGregor, and the chosen one himself, Hayden Christensen, will be in San Antonio, Texas, October 25th through the 27th. You can find out more information at www.spaceconsa.com, or you can also find SpaceCon San Antonio on social media to find more out about tickets or photo op prices or autograph prices. Head on over to their website or find them on social media. And if you're wondering, was that all they're bringing? No, they're bringing just about everybody from the Star Trek universe as well. Bill Shatner, Brent Spiner, Todd Stashwick, who was fantastic in the last season of Picard, Gates McFadden, and Jonathan Frakes is on this photo, but unfortunately he had to pull out of his appearance. He'll probably attend another year for sure. But yeah, this is going to be a major Star Wars slash Star Trek convention, and it's not
Stargate
long.
as well,
And Stargate as
and
well,
Battlestar.
maybe
All the
Battlestar
stars.
2, all the stars. It is SpaceCon. Um, It is called SpaceCon for a reason. So if you want more information, go find them on social media. We will be in attendance. We will have a booth on site, and we will be moderating a lot of the panels over the weekend. And I promise we will do again the best possible job that we can, and make sure that everyone has a great time, and it gets as close to a hall age experience as possible. That is always the goal when we're doing these things. So, yeah, let us know if you guys will be attending. We'd love to see you there. We also have a Facebook group on our social media on Facebook where we are talking with fans. It is the superhero Comic Con fan page. If you want to talk with other fans about the event, you have any questions about what goes on, or if you have any questions for us, you can either reach us on social media or you can go to that fan group and talk with others. All right. That was a lot, and that was fun. Thanks for everybody who was a part of the chat. Thanks for everybody who's watching. We have a huge group watching on X tonight. So I'm going to
Nice.
be doing that more often. So what's up to you guys on X who are very silent for some reason? And we will see you guys next time for the Countdown to the Geeks. My name is Ted, aka Steady. Joining me from the Star Wars Stuff podcast, my co-pilot for San Diego Comic Con, the one and only David Lozano,
That's the Lord of Summerfell to you.
the Lord of Summerfell. All right, guys. Have a great night. We'll see you later. Peace.